So namaste everyone, and good day, whether that's morning or afternoon or evening, and from wherever we are joining today from. Just waiting a few moments to allow for people to join. Okay, very beautiful. So, my name is David. I don't know who is joining today. I may know you from here in Mazunte or not, but I'm a Hridaya teacher and currently in the Hridaya Center in Mazunte, Mexico. And thank you so much for joining today. And today we're gonna have a short talk about a very beautiful topic, the topic of karma yoga, which is one of the most ancient and fundamental branches of yoga. Let's begin today just with a few moments of silence together. So we can just close our eyes. We'll have a very short moment of connecting with ourselves and with the heart. With the eyes softly closed, the spine straight, and allowing the body to fully relax. We take a few moments to simply observe this present moment. We may perceive the sounds around us and the sensations in the body. We can perceive that there may be thoughts or feelings, and simply allowing everything to be as it is. From this space of relaxation, we can center our awareness in the heart center, the middle of the chest, a little to the right. And opening to feel a sense of intimacy, a sense of resting in the core of our being. A reconnection with an inner presence. An inner depth. An openness and availability to life. And we can gently come back. So today we'll have a talk on karma yoga. And at the end, there'll be a space to ask any questions. And so you can just type questions in the comments and feel free to ask anything related to this topic that comes up, even if it's not something specifically mentioned in this short talk. Would love to answer any questions that might be there. So, let me just set up properly. Okay. So, karma yoga is a big topic. Maybe we don't have time to go over all of the elements during this talk, but definitely we can hit on some of the fundamental aspects. And my intention with this talk is simply to give a bit of an introduction to what is karma yoga, and then to just mention some of the fundamental elements of karma yoga as a practice. And at the end, to give a few little recommendations that can be supportive in actually putting this vision or understanding of karma yoga into practice. So, karma yoga is one of the 5 fundamental branches of yoga. In classical yoga, there are seen to be 5, and of course there are more than just this as well. There is Jnana yoga, Raja yoga, Tantra yoga, Bhakti yoga, and Karma yoga. And it is sometimes said that Karma yoga is the most ancient of all of these paths, and it is even said that it is the most complete of these paths. And I'll start with a quote from, actually it's from our Module 1 booklet on Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga's most important principle is to act unselfishly, without attachment, with integrity, awareness, and love. So, Karma Yoga has its root in karma and yoga, and karma is a Sanskrit word which means action. And it's a big topic, but essentially this action is understood as anything that is happening in life. So physical actions, but also subtle actions. So anything from walking to breathing, to the heart beating, to the process of thinking and perceiving, and expanding outside of ourselves also to everything that's happening in the world around us. The blowing of the wind, the movements of planets, yes, the movements of atoms. All of this is considered a form of action and is considered this karma. And yoga, probably many of us know, but yoga comes from the root yug, which means to bind or to yoke. And yoga can be understood as union or to unite. And so karma yoga, we can say, is the yoga or the union through action. Yeah? The yoga of action. Or we can say the yoga of dynamic presence, dynamic awareness, dynamic meditation. Taking that which we open to in a formal spiritual practice and allowing it to infuse into all actions, all movements in life. And to start with, it would be good to just say a few words about what is this yoga or union. And of course, this is a very big topic, but just to say, to give us some context, that this yoga refers to union. And it is essentially referring to this union between the individual and the universal. Yeah. The union between our individual consciousness and awareness with a universal awareness, with all of life. So it refers to this essential unity between all that exists. And it refers to the unity in our experience between what we perceive to be ourselves, yes, this experience of me, and everything around me. So it is this essential unity. And how can we understand this just a little bit in our experience? Well, we can simply say that the very presence the very consciousness, the very awareness that we experience now. The fundamental message of yoga is that when we bring this to a complete transparency, yes, so when we let go of any veil that brings a sense of separation between myself and everything around me, when we let go of any veil, any belief or any concept or any conditioning that exists in us, and when we come into this complete sense of transparency, that very presence, that very sense of awareness, sense of beingness in our own experience is revealed as something more and more universal, yes, less and less separate, and more seen as being the very same presence that exists in all of life, yes. And so all the different paths of yoga are fundamentally pointing in the same direction, yes, towards this same revealing or recognizing that the very core of our being, or we could say the most intimate experience of ourselves, of our own presence, is essentially a freedom, is a presence, is an awareness which permeates all of life, is a consciousness which is present in everything. So it's a much bigger topic and we could speak much more about it, but it's important to say that when we speak about karma yoga, we are speaking about a path which is pointing us towards this revelation of ourselves, towards this coming to connect with ourselves in a most intimate and most transparent way, yeah, a most free way. And karma yoga is actually considered to have quite a special place in yoga because we can speak about two main reasons. One, it is said to be like the bridge between all the other paths. So in any practice or in any path of yoga, whenever that which we are cultivating, which we are opening to, is taken and is infused into everyday life, it becomes this path of karma yoga. Yes. So if we speak about bhakti yoga, so a yoga which involves opening to and cultivating a sense of love, a sense of devotion, a longing towards truth. When that sense of love, openness, devotion, longing is there and permeates and becomes stable in our experience and carries into the way we interact with life, it becomes a practice of karma yoga. Yes. Or a practice of yoga which involves a formal practice, meditation, hatha yoga, or another form of yoga that we practice daily. When that sense of peace, when that sense of presence, when that sense of centeredness, connection within ourselves, when we feel that and when we can begin to feel that infusing in our lives, yes, starting to drive our actions, starting to infuse in how we interact and how we act, it starts to become this practice of karma yoga. So it is really like this bridge and link between any practice and all moments of our life. And this is the other reason for which karma yoga is given such a special importance, is because it is like that bridge. It is like that bridge which allows us to recognize that a spiritual practice, a practice of yoga, doesn't refer just to the time that we spend on the yoga mat or the time that we spend in a seated meditation or another form of practice, but it actually refers to our entire being and our entire life. And so karma yoga invites this integration, yes, this dropping away of a sense of any separation between how we act and interact from moment to moment. Yes, so when we are driving to work, or when we are sitting on the toilet, or when we are lying down to go into bed, to see that all of these moments are moments where this same presence, where this same aspiration or this same longing for truthfulness that we might feel in a formal practice can be there as well. So it creates that essential bridge. And in Hridaya Yoga we have this statement that we refer to, which is bringing our which is integrating the daily life into spirituality. So it is simply this pointer which says, when we begin to practice, when we begin to feel a sense of connection with something truthful within ourselves, within the present moment, and if that starts to feel real, if that starts to feel integral, if that starts to feel like it is pointing us towards the core of our being and the core of life, the core of experiencing life, then all of life can start to be integrated in that. So all of life can start to become enveloped, can start to become a pointer, a gateway towards this same movement towards truth, this same movement towards living life and experiencing ourselves in more and more authenticity, more and more intimacy. And so karma yoga is like this essential bridge. And of course, to speak about karma yoga does bring the question, what is karma? And I will say that we don't have time to go into this now. It is also a very big topic. But karma yoga is also based on this understanding that the way we experience life and the way we perceive life and the way we think and the way we act is based very much on karma, or this law of karma, which, if we could put very simply, is to say that there are certain impressions, there are certain conditions which exist in our being, which have been built up over time and through experience. And all of these impressions and experiences and memories and habits that we have, they tend to filter and color the way we experience life. And karma yoga is a practice by which we learn to come more and more to see life free, to see life in a transparency. So to allow these filters and veils to kind of melt away and to see what it is to live life from this intimacy of our being. So just like any other spiritual practice, karma yoga is essentially pointing to this. It is essentially pointing to this path of coming to, open to, and recognize ourselves in a freedom. Ourselves at our core, at our center. And then to allow life to be lived from this background, to allow this connection with ourselves, this sense of truthfulness, to guide our life, to guide our actions, our speech. Yes. So that's why we can say karma yoga is the art of living in presence, or the art of living from this, what we call in Hridaya, this I am feeling. This feeling of I am, I exist, this sense of presence, that is more fundamental than any label or any filter or any idea that we could put upon ourselves. So normally in my experience, I feel I am David, I am 31 years old, I live in Mexico, I have a whole world that represents my life, yes, from all of my life experiences and memories and stories. And of course, these are all a part of what I am. These are a part of my experience, and yet in practice, we start to come to see that this sense of simply being, so this sense of I am, this sense of I exist, is something more fundamental and more essential than any layer I could possibly give to myself. Yes. An example that helped me to understand this was to say when we look back through our lives, and when we look to when we were, let's say, 4 years old, yes, or 8 years old, or 15 years old, or 20 years old, and we continue. And we can see that through that whole time, so many things have changed in our life. So our experiences have changed, our way of perceiving the world, our way of perceiving ourselves, relationships, everything is in a change, yes. And yet that same sense of me, that same presence has been there this whole time. Even it helps me to think, like when you looked in the mirror when you were 4, and when you looked in the mirror now, the physical body was very different, and all of the world of David is different from 4 until now. And yet it's the same me looking through these eyes. Yeah. And so this is the art of meditation, is opening to this presence, to this I amness, to this beingness, which is more essential than any changing condition. And this is also the art of karma yoga. It is learning to act essentially from that space, to act from that transparency. And we can say that karma yoga often involves 2 aspects. One is a more formal aspect, and one refers to more our inner perception and our inner attitude. So many times when we practice karma yoga, it's often done as a form of selfless service, volunteering or offering ourselves for something outside of our own benefit. Yes, and this can be a beautiful practice, and in many traditions it is done in this way. There are, for example, traditions where for a long period of time you just do selfless service before you enter into that school or enter into that lineage, that tradition. And it's a very beautiful way to start to approach karma yoga, is to see putting ourselves in a position in which we are acting for something outside of what we might normally be driven by. So we might normally be driven by so many factors within ourselves, yes? But when we start to work for a cause, start to work for something outside of ourselves, it's like it can be a very powerful way for this gradual dissolution of many things, like the fear of failure, the desire for success, yes, personal interest driving our experience. Yes, so it can be a very powerful way of starting to dissolve these habits that are in us and start to awaken a different form of attitude or spirit, where we start to feel that enthusiasm towards working for something, yes, beyond just ourselves, working for another, or working for a group, or even working for all beings, all of life, yes. And in this, of course, this is not all that karma yoga refers to, but it is one fundamental aspect, and we can see maybe we've done or had experiences like this in our life, where we volunteered, or where even more spontaneously or naturally it happened. Like we were simply, there was an enthusiasm, there was an impetus, we were driven to act for something that we felt was right, that we felt was true. And in that, maybe we felt a different quality arise in us. Yes? An enthusiasm, or a love, or a care, or an aspiration that seemed to come from somewhere beyond just the personal, that seems to come from somewhere deeper within our being. And this is exactly this awakening of this deeper presence, and feeling how this deeper kind of dimension of our being can move us in life, can move us in an action. There is even the example of Mahatma Gandhi, who, when people would come to the center where he was living and where a community was there, he would have them do many things, like scrub toilets, like sweep halls, like clean trash, many things like this, simply as a sort of training and as a sort of practice in itself that can awaken this going beyond ourselves or stepping outside of ourselves. But again, karma yoga goes deeper than just any formal aspect. So karma yoga is not just about volunteering or doing actions for a cause, let's say. But karma yoga actually refers to, we can speak about it as from where our life is being lived and from where we are acting. Yes? And this starts to get more to the heart of this practice of karma yoga. So we can speak about it more as an inner experience. Yes? Rather than the external experience and circumstance, rather this inner spirit or inner attitudes that can awaken and which can start to drive our life and drive our actions. Yes? And so at Hridaya we say Karma Yoga is this yoga of acting with awareness, detachment, and love. And really all of these refer to sort of these inner attitudes or inner qualities. So acting in presence or acting in awareness. Acting with a detachment, a letting go of personal attachment to success or failure in the action. And acting from this love or this enthusiasm. And these are all kind of fundamental pointers. And actually they really point to the same thing. They really refer to the same thing. When we are really allowing ourselves to act from our heart, yes, to act from a transparency, to act from presence, we see that naturally in that there is this awareness, there is this sense of love or a sense of intimacy with life, and there is this detachment. Yeah. And so I'll just speak a little bit about some of these attitudes, and then again I'll say a few practical elements. So when we say this acting from presence, maybe we've experienced this in our life, that when we speak about this awareness and this detachment in action, it's not about not caring, yes, or being cold. So sometimes this idea of detachment has this sense of being disconnected or uncaring or not being fully involved in that action. But actually the practice of Karma Yoga, because again it's about this intimacy and presence of our being, the practice of Karma Yoga is really about how we can fully immerse in life, fully immerse in action with our entire being, you know, but from this deeper space. So from this deeper presence of our being, shifting from being driven entirely by what we can call the personality, or what we can call a structure of habits and beliefs and perceptions, to coming in touch with this deeper awareness of our being, this deeper intimacy of our being. And when we come to touch into that and to act from that space, we can see that there's actually a great freedom, and that the actions themselves start to become a continuous pointer towards this presence, towards this intimacy of our being. And maybe we've experienced this in some moments in our lives. I mean, I'm sure we have, actually. So moments where we are acting and it feels like we're not even there as a person. Yes, I'm not even there with my concerns or my fears or worries, yes, or projections upon what might happen, but I'm there in a deeper sense of freedom. I'm like fully alive in that moment. Maybe because something very strong is happening in that moment and I simply have this impulse and I'm called to act. Or maybe just a moment of beauty, like we're hiking up a mountain and then suddenly it begins to rain, and it's like a dropping away of ourselves in that moment, and we're just there hiking and suddenly those thoughts are gone, yes, those plans are gone, those strategies are gone, and we just feel ourselves free and open to that moment. And this is very much what Karma Yoga points to. It is this openness, availability, and transparency towards life in any moment. This is really what we could say the heart of Karma Yoga, in the same way that meditation is about resting into an availability and openness towards the present moment and reiterating that, resting in that again and again. The same when we take this into every moment of our life. Every moment can be an opportunity to become present. Every moment is an opportunity to become open, to become transparent, to fully feel and be with life as it is. And this doesn't mean that we don't feel, that we don't think, that we don't care, that things aren't happening. but it means we start to feel and recognize this dimension of ourselves where all of this is happening on a deeper background of presence, a sense of being grounded in that space of our being which doesn't change regardless of the external circumstances. No matter what is happening, I am available. And in that openness, there's a great freedom to act in life with a clarity, with a full presence, and engaging our entire being. But we start to feel how we can be driven by this deeper sense of freedom. And this is one of the beautiful things about the practice of karma yoga, is it starts to reveal so many things. So speaking from personal experience, karma yoga was something I felt very drawn to in a way. After doing some retreats and learning meditation and starting to practice a lot, there came like a great impetus to want to act, to want to be involved, to want to support. But in this journey, and of course I'm just the journey is not complete by any means, but in this process, so many things were revealed through kind of trying to learn how to act and live again and again from this same truthfulness or presence that we can open to in meditation. And then seeing and learning through that experience, like how many times I'm driven from fear, or how many times I'm driven from so many different things, yes, how I may be perceived or what the outcome might be. So seeing how much goes into any action in any moment, yes, and then seeing how in truth, when the moments that feel the most authentic, the moments that feel the most true and genuine, are when there's like a stepping out from this bubble, when there's a dropping away of these conditions, and when that freedom of being starts to flow forth. And seeing how those are the moments where the most genuine action can arise and take place. And so this journey of karma yoga can be such a powerful practice in this way, because it can bring such an understanding and awareness to our tendencies, yes, to our beliefs, from the most obvious to things that are very, very subtle as well, yes. And really what it points to is again and again reiterating the same kind of aspiration to live from this connectedness with our center, from this authenticity of our being. And so of course in this way, formal practice and then opening to this in every moment of our life go hand in hand, because the formal practice can greatly support when we sit to meditate or when we practice yoga, even if we've only practiced a little bit or maybe we've never practiced. But you might see that after a practice of meditation or a practice of a form of yoga, there's like a shift in our being. Yeah? We might feel more open, we might feel more free, and then we can feel how that can start to translate into our life. Yes. Well, this practice, when it's reiterated again and again, yes, when we connect within ourselves intimately again and again, it can start to stabilize in our being, which means it starts to feel less and less like a great contrast between those short moments of peace and our common experience where there's so many things happening. And over time, it's like that sense of simplicity of being starts to become more and more natural. And we start to naturally feel how it infuses in our life, and how in different moments we feel that same sense of intimacy and presence. And we feel how it feels more true living from there than living from a reactivity or a fear or a judgment. While of course those things naturally arise and continue to arise, it's like over time we start to more and more emphasize this presence and intimacy. And this is really this journey of karma yoga. And there's a very beautiful quote from the Taoist tradition. It is known as Wei Wu Wei. It's a very well-known quote, and it means Wei Wu Wei, acting without acting. Acting without acting. And it really gets to the heart of this lived experience of karma yoga. Acting without acting simply means, again, not acting, but it means acting not from a sense of me, David, as a personality doing and controlling my entire experience, but rather acting from this sense of availability, acting from a sense of openness, really allowing ourselves to become more like a vessel for life to move through us. Yes, because it's actually something very simple in a way in our experience when we really allow ourselves to become open, empty, like even a moment of truly just stopping and listening to all of life around us. It's like in that moment we naturally feel what is happening in that moment and how we can respond from the most authentic or genuine place, from the most place that brings the greatest harmony in life. And that understanding and that movement comes not from me and what I'm doing and controlling, but rather from that availability to life. And this is that wei wu wei, or acting without acting. And so a beautiful example that I can think of in my life of this spirit of karma yoga was Hridaya opened a center in France about 1.5 years ago. And I wasn't there for the whole time, just the last 3 months before the school reopened, but I spoke to many who were there during that whole 1.5 year experience. And it was a difficult time in many ways. Yes, they had cold winters and they had to renovate an entire, very old chateau. And so much work was put in, and so much effort was there. And so many moments where a lot of the people there, they expressed feeling like there's just no way this can be done. There's just no way it can happen. And yet there was this deeper movement there among all of them, which said, no, it's possible. And no matter what struggles are there, anyway, trust. Yes? Beyond success and failure, we give our best. Yes, we give our best again and again. And somehow this spirit awoke there and just continued and continued throughout this entire time. So difficulties and great challenges would come, but then again this enthusiasm, this inspiration, this trust would arise there. And we can find many examples of this in the lives of great spiritual teachers. For example, Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekananda is a very beautiful example of karma yoga and has actually written books about karma yoga. Mother Teresa, actually all the lives of all these great spiritual teachers, you can find this same attitude of karma yoga, which is this acting, being available to life from that deeper space, yes, from that deeper intimacy with life. And just to conclude, again I would say that karma yoga, it's not about not acting. In fact, we can be deeply inspired to work towards something, to work towards a cause, to give ourselves to something. But it is a practice which really asks of us, like, how can we act from the deepest authenticity? How can we see any filters that might be there in our being? And how can we really honor that which is most true in our experience? Yes. So no matter what we are doing, whether it's working on a project or walking down the street to get ice cream, both become practices of karma yoga. Yes. Both can be done from the same space. And really, in an experiential way, we can see there is a great freedom in that. And from my experience, it's such a contrast between when I find myself in fear or in expectation or in projection and find myself very wound up in myself, and when there's a dropping away of this and a deeper sense of naturalness and freedom. And it's very beautiful to see that contrast, and then very beautiful to struggle back and forth in this journey as well. So practically, just a few tips in the practice of karma yoga. There are some very simple things we can do. Selfless service is a beautiful way to practice. It's not the only way by any means, but seeing what it's like to do something, to offer ourselves in small ways or in larger ways for something outside of ourselves. And just to start to feel that sense of, there's like a greater force or a greater spirit that can awaken in my being. Even more simple is simply in day-to-day moments, in any moment, treat it like a meditation. And if we've never meditated before, then simply treat it as a moment of, when I remember, how can I become present? How can I see that maybe I'm lost in thoughts? And without fighting and rejecting, just see what it means to try to become transparent, empty, open in that moment, and become intimate with life in any small moment. Yes. And another is to notice moments where we feel enthusiasm, when we feel inspiration, and to just become aware how, regardless of the external circumstance that causes that, feel what it feels like to feel that enthusiasm, to feel how in that moment there's like a deeper movement of my being, a deeper freedom of my being, and a kind of melting away of any contractions and any restrictions, and honor those moments as well. So I believe this is a bit over time from what I was going to speak. Again, it's a big topic, so the idea was just to give a bit of an intro and touch on some aspects of karma yoga that can bring an inspiration and that can give us a taste of what this points to. So now, if there's any questions, I have my eye on the comments section. I believe I'm in the right spot. So feel free to write any questions of any kind. I hope I'm in the right spot for questions. Well, either I'm in the wrong spot or there are no questions. Great. Is there a specific element of karma yoga that you have found more challenging? You know, in my personal experience, a great practice of karma yoga has been teaching. So I've been here at Hridaya for the past several years, and part of that time has been teaching at the center. And there was one of these things that really trigger some of my inner conditions. Yes. So in teaching, it's like I can feel many things come up. Fear in particular. Even when I was a kid, like speaking in front of people was great fear. You know, that feeling where the throat closes and the face gets red. This I definitely had. And especially in moments like preparing for lectures and anticipating what will happen. These are very strong moments for me to see where I would say the challenge there is that attachment to results, but that seeing how that really stems from this deeper core thing that's there, like a fear to be open and to be available and to somehow try to control life, yes? To try to control out of fear of the unknown or what may come. And when I looked from that experience, I could see that that was reflected all in my entire life, like a perfume, you know, that comes up so many times. And it has been, and will continue to be, a beautiful journey with this, but seeing that really life tends to show again and again, and the practice can support and reinforce that when there is a capacity to let go, to open, of course to prepare and to put one's best into any moment, but to open and to let go and to be available, and to those moments when that fear or need for control drops away, can feel how much authenticity can come and how much intimacy with life can come. And so this has been like a great challenge in a way, and at the same time a great recognition and pointer. And I feel many times it's like this, that where there's the greatest challenge, when we can relax and open through that and melt into that, it is exactly there where so much depth can arise. So for me this is an ongoing journey, but it becomes so apparent that the difference between those two aspects, yes, and how true it is in a way that in presence, in openness and in availability, we are really most intimate and alive with life. Yes. So this one has been a beautiful and challenging thing, definitely. Well, thank you so much everyone for joining today. It's super beautiful to connect in this way, and yes, I always love to talk about these things, so we can communicate in whatever way, but I feel, in my experience, especially during these times, the teachings of Karma Yoga and these kind of pointers can be so powerful. My experience with this, when times there's so much unknown and there's so much maybe intensity in so many different ways, and yet seeing how, what is most true for us, what is most real for us, and can we again and again act and live from there. So yeah, and sharing and connecting about this can be very powerful. So thank you so much everyone. Have a very beautiful day, night, morning, whatever it might be. Thank you.